Their report is, as you say, that on the report on the flight out from from Dusseldorf to Barcelona, in other words, the pilot Anders Lubitz practiced this a descent. There was, according to Bild, a period of 20 minutes unexplained descent. Now, what that means, it's unclear to me. I mean, if it was a very steep descent, I imagine that there'd have been all sorts of ructions when the plane landed at Barcelona. But it does seem that, according to Bild, that something happened on the way out, which may be interpreted as Lubitz rehearsing in some way what he planned to do, or maybe even beginning to do what he planned to do and then being stopped because the pilot came back in. Because as we know, on the way back, I should say, Lubitz did do that, and I'm just seeing the conclusion of the report, and it confirms everything that we said so far. In other words, that Lubitz shut himself in the cockpit, refused to answer the door when there were knocks on the door, and directed the plane into the ground. And this detail, if it's true from Bild, is certainly interesting, but doesn't really alter the picture which we have, which is of a man who was clearly unbalanced and deliberately planned what he did.
People will ask, though, I mean, one of the AP news agencies is saying that he repeatedly set the plane into descent, sort of 5 times during that earlier flight. Why wasn't this picked up, tracked, and then him questioned about what he was doing?
That will be the question. I mean, it seems unbelievable that if there was something dramatic on that flight out, in other words, if the flight had been sort of seesawing through the skies on the way to Barcelona, that when it landed, there wouldn't have been some kind of report. The pilot himself would have said something, surely. The passengers would have been, to say the least, confused and upset. So it's very hard to gauge the extent of this descent which he apparently engaged. I mean, if it was just something which was a gradual descent and therefore not really detectable, even though it wasn't on the flight plan, then that's a rather different matter from, for something very dramatic, which would have, caused panic among the passengers and alarm among the rest of the crew.
Yes, they're saying that cockpit data says that plane was put into descent mode 5 times in a 4.5-minute period on that earlier flight, and that BEA is looking at the systematic failings that may have led to this accident or similar events. When do we get answers to those questions?
Well, I mean, not for a while. I mean, this is an interim report, and it'll be several months, I imagine. I mean, I know, looking at the conclusions, which I'm seeing before me now, they're saying that the investigation will study the systemic failings that may have led to this accident or similar events with 2 main orientations. First, medical aspects. The investigation will seek to understand the current balance between medical confidentiality and flight safety. And that's a clear reference to the fact that Lubitz, as we know, had been diagnosed earlier, a few years earlier, with suicidal tendencies, and right up to the eve of the accident, had been treated and had medical notes saying that he was unfit for work, which he tore up. And it's also reported that he had worries about his eyesight, and this obviously all contributed to his mental state. But the rules of confidentiality are strict in Germany, and one area which the investigators will be looking into is to whether that balance needs to be readjusted, so that when doctors are worried about a pilot's mental health, that they can go to the employer and say, look, don't let this man fly. And the other aspect, of course, is cockpit security. And, well, we know about that. Should there be new ways of arranging the right to enter a cockpit? The sealed door was there to stop terrorists, but now we can see that an unforeseen consequence of that is that someone bent on suicide inside the cockpit is now free to do what he wants to do.